Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger card collector, coming to you with another video. Today is Friday, July 21st, the beginning of another weekend. 1 week, I guess, or no, less than a week away from the National starting. I wish I was going. I'm really envious of those of you guys that are going out there. So I saw a video this week from the Drew, and he was doing this pay it forward video, and he brought up to anyone who's going to this show, please take video. I would love to see video as well. It's always neat to see these videos every year of just these wonderful cards. So if you're going to the National, please post videos, because I've got nothing better to do next weekend except be jealous of you guys for going out there and having a good time. What do I got going? As of this recording, we are about an hour and 15 away from the Women's World Cup. Yeah, I'm going to watch. USA's playing at 6 o'clock local time. Can't wait to see how they do. They've won 2 World Cups in a row. Hopefully they win a third. I'll be honest, I'm not that big of a soccer fan, but I do like to watch when it comes to things like the World Cup. And the U.S. women tend to dominate, and let's see how they do. Baseball-wise, I'm heading out to the Dodger game. Toronto Blue Jays are in town next week, so hope to catch that. And I'm already planning. I am already planning a baseball trip for next year. I have received 4 different texts in the last month. One from a friend at Fenway Park, one from a friend at Citibank Field in New York, one from Comerica Park, one from in Detroit, and one from, is it called Chase Field now in Arizona? I still know it as the Bob. One in Arizona of friends of mine at baseball games, and it got me really jealous. And then a friend of mine sent me an Instagram post of some guy who just finished all 30 stadiums, and I've been stuck at 16 since 2019. And it just really inspired me to think about going on a baseball tour again. Not a baseball tour. I make them up. But I've told myself I cannot do it in 2023 because I'm devoting all extra resources and money to my house. And we're almost there. I've got 2 more projects to work on this year, and then I could think about a vacation in 2024. And I've already started looking at things, and if things pan out right, and it has to pan out right, I found out that the Dodgers will be playing a weekend series, something I've always wanted to do. They are playing a weekend series in Toronto. Those of you that, I don't think any of you guys realize this, for some reason, I am a big fan of Toronto sports teams. I am a major Toronto Maple Leafs fan after the Los Angeles Kings. And I am a big Toronto Blue Jays fan, obviously after the Dodgers. And I've always wanted to go to a game at the Rogers Center, or the Sky Dome as it used to be known, and hopefully attend a game where the roof is open on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon and watch a game. And I noticed that the MLB put out their schedules, and the Blue Jays are already hyping. They have a weekend series that weekend. So all of a sudden, my mind started working a million different ways, and I also realized that the NHL season ends the week before, the week before the Dodgers arrive. So that week, if the Toronto Maple Leafs make it into the first round of the playoffs, which they should, they will be hosting a home game. Now, my brother and I always talked about potentially going back to Toronto. We went to Toronto several years ago and watched the Kings play the Maple Leafs. And we always talked about, wow, we'd love to go back one day and go see a playoff game in Toronto. The fever, the hockey fever in Toronto is like something I've never seen before. Even Sports Center out there, all they do is talk about hockey. You're on the subway, and all the kids have their skates and their sticks and their hockey hair and their hockey beanies, and they're all going to practice at some skating rink. And our hotel happened to be near the old Maple Leafs Gardens, so I found myself going there every night. We watched a lot of games there. But if I'm lucky, I'll be able to catch a Toronto Maple Leafs home game in the playoffs, and see my Dodgers play 2 or 3 nights in Toronto, that'd be a dream come true. So that's a 2024 goal. Hopefully it happens. We'll see. In the meantime, we got the trade deadline coming up. I do not expect Shohei Ohtani to be traded. I think the Angels would be stupid to do that at this point. Let him walk away in free agency and don't get anything for him. Don't trade him on your fan base. I live about 20 miles from where the Angels play, and those people love Ohtani, and I don't think they're going to keep him. But if you trade him, that place will the crowds will just disappear from that stadium. So let's see what happens with this trade deadline. I'm pretty excited to see what happens. Hobby-wise, last week, and I'm going to show you some pickups in a moment, I went to a baseball card show in Temecula, California. It's wine country. It's about 80 miles from my house. My sister lives out that way, and I just became a great uncle for the second time. My nephew and his wife had a baby. His name is Jameson Maverick. Yeah, he's a Top Gun fan. My nephew's a Top Gun fan. So Jameson Maverick came into this world, and I hadn't seen him yet. So I thought, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. There's this show in Temecula. It happens once or twice a year, maybe even 3 times a year. A $10 admission at the Pachanga Casino and Resort. So I thought, let's go. Let's figure it out. Let's go out there and see if anything's happening out there. And surprisingly, it was happening. You guys know how much of a vintage snob I am. And there was about 6 or 7 good tables out there. For me, 6 or 7 tables is incredible. I always like to watch Huck's videos, because Huck goes to these tiny sports card shows in Kentucky and in Missouri and in Ohio, and in these tiny rooms, and every table has vintage. We don't have that here. So when you get 6 or 7 tables of vintage at a big card show, you're like, oh my God, there's tons of vintage out here. So I went out and met some really nice people that are going to be doing they're going to be at the Burbank Card Show. There's going to be a card show in Pasadena later this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing them there. But I was able to make some pickups, which is really nice. So I'm going to share those with you momentarily. Today, I am really here to talk about my 1965 top set. I'm going to show that off to you. It's a set that I enjoyed working on. It was the year I was born. And I just thought it would be great to show off, just because I've shown you 1953. I've shown you 1957. I'm not going to show you my sets from the 70s, just because everyone else out there has. So this will probably be, until I finish, I do have a couple more sets up my sleeve. So until I finish these sets, in these next 2 sets, this will be my last set video for a very long time. So without further ado, let's take a look at my 1965 top set. All right, I said I was going to show you my 1965 top set, but before I do that, I want to show you some of my pickups from the Temecula baseball card show. Got some deals. You know, I love to collect my Dodger players, and I'm starting to look for more of the regional type stuff that not everybody buys. You know, someone like John Mangini or Rick's Oddball, Vintage Oddball, you know, more their style type cards. And I was able to find some cards from the 60s, Morrell Meats. So I picked up this, the next 3 are all from 1960. 1960 Morrell Meats. It's a regional issue. I believe these guys made hot dogs or deli meats, and they would put the cards in their packaging. And the thing that I really like about this set, the Dodgers had just moved to California from Brooklyn. They were playing at the old LA Coliseum. And these photos are all taken at the Coliseum. So they're a little different. They're not in the greatest of shape. There was a seller there who had, he just had a stack of Dodger cards, and he honestly didn't know anything about them, and I didn't want to rip him off, and I didn't want to be ripped off. I'm going to show you the Gil Hodges card here. See, you get to see the peristyle into the Coliseum. The Los Angeles Rams were playing here at the same time, so the Dodgers were sharing basically a football stadium with the Rams when they moved in. And I should add, and UCLA football and USC football. They were all using it at some point during the season. There's Gil Hodges. He has a pinhole up here. As I was saying, I didn't feel like getting ripped off, and he offered me, here's Duke Snider. You get a better view of the peristyle in here with the scoreboard and the Olympic torch. He wanted $50 for all 3 cards, and I don't like to be rude, and I don't like to be ripped off, and I just said, no, I don't want to do that. And he was like, well, what are you thinking? And I go, honestly, man, I was thinking like 20 bucks. And he goes, okay, I'll take it. So I gave him 20 bucks for all 3 of these. And these are 1960 Morrell Meats Dodgers. I was walking around and I saw another guy with some vintage, which was nice to see at a local card show here in SoCal. He had some 60s cards. And I thought he was a really nice guy. And he was out of Tucson. He was from Tucson, Arizona. I'm so sorry I'm not remembering his name. Hopefully he doesn't watch YouTube. But he had some 60s cards that I was interested in. And I just bought a couple from him. This one being the 1961 Post Sandy Koufax. And yeah, you see some type of stain mark there or tape mark there. Same with over here. If you look at the back, these cards were cut from the sides of cereal boxes. I wasn't around for this. I was more of a Kellogg's guy, and that was several years later where the cards were individually packaged in the box. These were actually on the cardboard, on the actual cardboard box. So this is Sandy Koufax, and it cost me all of $6. So I was like, what the heck, why not? It's a Sandy Koufax card. I'm not looking to get this graded. I'm not looking to sell it. It's for me. So that's a nice addition. And the last card, which I bought from the same seller, I bought this 1963 Veteran Masters featuring Casey Stengel and Gene Woodbine. That cost me $2. So some nice little pickups there from the Temecula Card Show. It was a good show. I don't know how often it is. It's either once or twice a year. So I'll definitely make a point to head out there again. As I mentioned to you at the introduction, there was some decent vintage at this show. That's for sure. So let's take a look at the 1965 top set. Here's my binder, and one thing I always like to do on the spine here is I put whoever won the World Series that year, and in that case that was the Dodgers. Put my little label on there, 1965. I just put that on the spine of each of my sets just so it looks presentable when you see them displayed, when you see the binders displayed on a shelf. And we open up the binder. Here's the set. I always have one clear, one pocket sheet, just as some type of protection for some reason. I always like to do that. And we start taking a look at the set here, and here you get to see the league leader cards opened up that 1965 set. Obviously, my favorite is the Koufax and the Drysdale card, card number 8, the ERA leaders. But there's some great other cards here. Mays, Willie Mays, Billy Williams, Orlando Cepeda. The one that intrigued me the most when I first started working on this set, when I first got it, was the Mickey Mantle card. 1964 home run leaders, Harmon Killebrew, Boog Powell, and Mickey Mantle. That was technically one of the first cards I was able to get. That was like one of my first Mickey Mantle cards ever. And it's not, you know, it's a league leaders card. It's not really a Mickey Mantle card, but yeah, that was the first one, and I really liked it a lot. One of the things that I didn't tell you at the beginning of the video that you might see before is if I have a card that's slabbed, and in this case it's going to be Joe Morgan and Sonny Jackson, I make a photocopy of it. I then cut out the colored paper, and I double side tape it onto a junk wax card, and I make this copy. And on the back, you'll notice I put the PSA slab number and the barcode, just a photocopy of that. That's what I like to do for my photocopies, just because I'm one of those that likes to look at cards and not see empty pockets in my sheets. So that's how I account for slabbed cards. And at the end of the video, once we look at the binder, I'll go ahead and show you my graded cards from this set. Frank Howard. I started this set a few years ago. I bought a big, I had the 65 Dodger team set, obviously. And I decided to buy a lot, I think of roughly 400 cards, 350 cards. And that got me going. There's Jim Cott, misspelled, K-A-T-T. Never fixed that. Tony Conigliaro, one of my favorite California Angels growing up. And then from there, I bought a lot of singles as usual, from Greg Morris. I tend to buy a lot of cards from Greg Morris. I know some of you think that he's rather expensive. I think he's great for set building. Harvey Haddix on the Orioles. For those of you that are set builders, Greg Morris offers good cards. Some people say he's expensive, but I think the cards are in great shape, and it really helps out when you're working on a set. He allows you 7 days. If you win an auction today's Friday, your shipping costs won't be totaled until you keep making bids for the next 7 days. So when you win on Friday, you keep bidding on cards Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. He'll combine shipping on all that. So it kind of makes you a slave if you only win a couple of cards. Then you realize, well, all week it looks like I'm going to be looking at Greg Morris cards on eBay. Gil Hodges, manager of the Washington Senators at that point. This is arguably my favorite, probably my favorite set from the 60s, either this one or 1963. I love the different colors. I love the pennant. The pennant to me is really what stands out. The Giants, the Braves, the Twins. I just think it adds something to this card. And that was one of the reasons I decided to work on this set. There's Ron Santo. One of the other reasons I decided to work on this set was because it was the year I was born. And I wanted to have a 60s set in my collection. And I thought, well, let's pick... I'm not a big fan of the later 60s cards, but the 1965 set I thought would be great. Just because it was the year I was born. I like the design. It's one of my favorites. And there's still a lot of great players. They're older at this point. Mays and Mantle, even Kaline, Hank Aaron, Clemente, Banks. But they're still in your collection. They still look great. Mickey Mantle. I remember, I don't know what this costs now. Back then, it cost me $30. And I thought, Jesus, I'm paying $30 for a Mickey Mantle card. It's a World Series card. Let's see what else is in here. The Cardinals Celebrate. The World Series cards are super nice. That Jim Bouton, that Bob Gibson card. Great cards. There are 7 sets in this series. Brooks Robinson. The high number set is not that difficult compared to all the other 60s sets. And there will be some people that say the next series, or the series before that, Series 6, that those cards were harder to get. This Roger Maris card and this Roberto Clemente card, they're not in the best condition, especially the Maris. You'll see a crease right there. These are cards from my original collection. And for those of you that know, have been following my videos, I probably kept maybe 100 cards from my original collection when I was a child. Everything else went away magically. But I managed to hold on to about 100 cards. So I don't replace them in my collection. They get a prize in my binder here. They might not be the nicest Clemente, the nicest Maris, but they're the cards I've held on to the longest. So for that reason, I keep them in my collection. Hank Aaron. Most of my cards are ungraded on this set. I think I have roughly 8 graded cards. William McCovey. When I was working on this set, I was more of a non-graded card set builder. I tend to, for this set, I started buying Casey Stengel. That's also a very old card for me from the original collection. During the 65 set is when I started buying cards from PSA, just because I started to get a little paranoid. I had now grown from buying 70s cards and was now buying 60s cards of guys like Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, and I go, I don't want to get cheated here, so I started buying graded cards. I wanted to make sure they were authentic. Warren Spahn's last card. And so this is where this is the point where I started buying graded cards. Let's see, Tommy John. One of my favorite Angels, Jim Fregosi. Billy Williams. These are just nice cards. They didn't have action cards yet. We're still going through the capless cards that started in the 60s and continued throughout the entire decade. Steve Blass, one of my favorite players from the 1971 Pirates team. Let's see. Denny McLain, rookie. That was an expensive card. I kept going, man, it's not a high number, but it was hard to find on eBay for a good price. It took me a while to find it, and every time I looked for one, it was an expensive card. I eventually found one at a good price. Joe Pepitone, Wally Moon, Dave McNally, some guys I just remembered. Willie Mays, and the Mays is also a photocopy based on what that is right there. Don Drysdale. Bert Campaneris, Campy Campaneris. That wasn't a cheap card. That's his rookie, so it was kind of on the pricier end to look for it compared to the others. Dick Groat. I could be wrong. That might be the last Dick Groat card. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. If you notice, this was the Houston Astros' first year, known as the Astros. They were called the Colt 45. And I believe it only in the first series, it just says Houston. It doesn't say Astros. And like the Joe Morgan card has the Colt 45 logo. By the time we get to this series, you'll notice there's no Astro logo, and now it says Houston Astros as opposed to just Houston. In the 60s, the Astros always had issues with their logos on cards. Sandy Koufax, that's a copy. You'll see right there. There's his PSA. Johnny Callison, Bob Gibson, Rusty Staub. Hank Bauer was now a manager at this point with the Orioles, 1 year away from winning his first World Series. Whitey Ford. And when I was buying these cards, these were the first times, like I said, I was buying Whitey Ford cards, Warren Spahn cards, Mickey Mantle. So this was a great way to get introduced to them before I started working on early 60s or 50s sets, especially. Right after I started working on this set, I gained the confidence enough to really say I want to work on a big, not when I say big, not in quantity, but I want to work on a really great vintage set. And that's when I decided to start building. I was getting close to finishing this set. There's Tony Oliva and Mickey Lolich when I decided to start building a 1953 set. So when you work on these, it just gives you total confidence. Card 350, I have never made a copy of that. That's Mickey Mantle. I'll show you the graded card when we get through the binder here. Leon Wagner. Willie Stargell right there. Yaz. Yaz wasn't cheap either. And when I say not cheap, I'm talking pre-COVID. So, like I said, $30 for an ungraded card, like several years ago, was pricey. Now it isn't. Now you're like, oh my God, thank God that card only cost me $30. Rocky Calavito, back on the Indians. Don Larson on the Astros. For you Yankee friends out there. Harmon Killebrew. John Roseborough. Luis Aparicio on the Orioles by this point. Hall of Fame manager Al Lopez. Curt Flood. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame, not just for what he accomplished on the baseball field. He should definitely be inducted. Obviously, what he did outside of baseball was also great, but he should be in there. He put up some really good numbers. Let's see, Willie Davis. Elston Howard. And let's see. This one's this card here. Bob Kennedy, the head coach, not the manager, the head coach. This is when the Cubs went through that period where they didn't have a manager. They had a college of coaches. So they'd have like 5 to 10 coaches that the Cubs organization would put in the dugout. And they would, I don't know if they'd have votes or if somebody would just say, hey, let's take out the pitcher. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's take him out. But they would, they wasn't a leader. So they had like several coaches running the team. Eventually, it was a disaster. The Cubs weren't playing well. They brought Leo DeRocha in to manage the team. Yogi Berra, his last player card, catcher coach. Steve Carlton, rookie. That's also a photocopy. But yeah, so they brought DeRocha in. DeRocha shredded the team for a year and made them pretty damn good by the late 60s. Unfortunately, they never won. Nellie Fox, that's his last card, second baseman, coach for the Astros. A lot of player coaches at this point. Eddie Matthews. Is Eddie Matthews card 500? He is. Here's where I'm going to get shot by you guys. I love this Ernie Banks card. Everyone else hates it. I think it's a great card. I just love the profile shot. A lot of people don't like it, say it's his worst card. Give me a break. 1961 was a lot uglier. I just like this player profile shot. He looks good. He's smiling. You could barely see his C on the cap there. That's a great one. Bob Uecker. Even there as a player with that smile, he just kind of have a devilish grin that he took to the broadcast booth. Still with the Milwaukee Brewers at this point. And if you've never heard him, seriously, put him on the radio. He sounds great still on the radio. I really enjoy listening to him. Catfish Hunter, this is a photocopy. Johnny Blue Moon Odom is also on this card. And there is the PSA. By this point, I'm getting to the high numbers. This Mets card, Tug McGraw rookie, along with Ron Swoboda, wasn't easy to find. Lou Brock, like I say, for high numbers, for the 60s, these high numbers were pretty easy. They were still a little pricey, but it was a good introduction into working with high numbers. Not from the 70s, because those 70s high numbers are a beast from 70, 71, and 72. I haven't had the pleasure yet of trying to build a 1966 or a 1967 set. I hear their high numbers are a disaster to work on. Jesus Alou. Let's see, Mel Stottlemyre. I think that might be his rookie card as well. There are 4 prominent Hall of Fame rookie cards, and I'll show you those in a moment. I bought this card a long time ago, this Dodger Rookie Stars with Jim Lefevre in it. I bought that about 15 years ago, and that cost me like $10. I remember thinking, this is crazy. But it was a high number and wasn't easy to find, and I wanted to finish my Dodger team set. Claude Osteen, brought over from Washington in the Frank Howard trade. Tony Perez, that's a photocopy. We're almost done. Bob Skinner, Tommy McGraw, I've got a couple more. Al Downing is card 598. So there are 598 cards in this set. They make up 7 series. As I said, there are a lot of collectors that know more than I do that say the 7th series, which is the last series, isn't as hard to get compared to Series 6. And this was a fun set to work on. And I was hoping to show you one more card, but I seem to have misplaced it in here, number-wise. So I'm going to keep going here. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at my graded cards. So let's take a look at my graded cards. I think I mentioned earlier I have actually 7 graded cards, so not many. I was just starting to buy my graded cards at this point. First up, Joe Morgan rookie. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier in the video, it doesn't say Colt 45 yet. It says Houston. We still have the 45s on the logos. By the later series, we start seeing them say Houston Astros with a blank logo on their cap. But that's Joe Morgan. I got this for a really good deal back in, I think I paid $45 for this. But that's Joe Morgan. And Sonny Jackson, I shouldn't forget him because he had a decent career. I remember him on the Atlanta Braves in the early 70s. Basically a reserve player. Next up, card number 250 is Willie Mays. Probably one of my favorite Mays cards in a PSA 5. I think I started liking this card when I was about 10 years old. The 1975 MVP cards that Topps had back then had Willie Mays on it. And the funny thing is, and it shows you how much I like this design and how I am someone who thinks about originals. The 1968 card of Willie Mays is the exact same photo, and I don't like it. I think I just like the originality of it, and I like this design so much that I don't even think I own the 68 Mays. I have to buy it because I did have it when I was a kid. But for now, I stick with the 65 card of Willie Mays. Card number 300. I did not know this till a couple years ago. This is Sandy Koufax. This is the same pose as his 1964 Topps Giants card. Those large cards from the 1964 set. I think somebody on YouTube pointed it out to me, and I never noticed it till then. Great card. Love the pose. Love the stare down. I would say Sandy doesn't have one bad card. I could be right. I'm not a big fan of the 1960 card, but still. There's Koufax in all his glory. Oh, I got it. Mickey Mantle. I mentioned to you that I had bought the World Series home run card, and I had also bought the league leaders card of his first. This was one of the last 5-6 cards I needed in the set. And when I bought this, I was like, oh man, I finally got a Mickey Mantle. Like, you know, I have a real Mickey Mantle card in my collection. Those two cards that I just brought up don't mean as much, or the 1964 Topps Giants card doesn't mean as much. This was, to me, was my first Mantle card. And I used to say it would be my last, and I ended up buying a few more. And at the rate I'm going on, I know I'm going to end up buying 1 or 2 more. Love this card. Bought it in a 4.5. And love the Mick. Next up, are we just doing rookies the rest of the way here? Yeah. Steve Carlton in his rookie card, along with Fritz Ackley. Did not have a card in 1966. Would come back with another card in 1967. And was traded to the Phillies for Rick Wise before the 1972 season. Let's see. Jim Catfish Hunter. And here he is with Johnny Blue Moon Odom. I think that's Renee Latchman on the upper left. And Skip Lockwood. If this is the same Latchman, he might have become the Angels manager at one point. Not sure. I remember Skip Lockwood on the Brewers. Hunter had a great career, Hall of Fame career. And the last card is the Tony Perez rookie card from 1965. I like this one a little bit more. That Hunter card, he's in there with 3 other guys. At least in this card, Perez is prominently featured here, along with Kevin Collins and Dave Ricketts. And I don't know whatever happened to those other 2 guys. But I have this card in a 4. And that is a look at my 1965 Topps set. That was a fun set to work on. As I mentioned to you, that was the year I was born. I wanted a set from that era. And the 65 set is a great set to work on. It's a good looking set. There's a lot of great stars in there. You definitely won't be disappointed. So if you are thinking of building a set from the 60s, build that 1965 set. I think that'll make you pretty happy. And if you've managed to stay with me this long, thanks so much for sticking around, and we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.